this is Diane. I'm sorry, it's completely my fault that we are late on the second episode of season 11 of The Walking Dead. Work was really crazy last week.
And this is Marnell, and she's not entirely to blame because I don't push the issue because I'm doing plumbing on my house. So, yeah, thanks, YouTube.
And I just want to say that most of our fans are probably saying, oh, that's right, we want to talk to the manager. Which that kind of leads us into what we should probably lead with, huh?
Right?
There is no manager. The inmates are being left to run the asylum.
Yeah. So I wasn't able to get the total down low because I locked myself out of Slack, and apparently I couldn't view it on Facebook. But so Diane has all the bad news.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I have all the news. I think Rob and Martha would say it's not entirely bad news, but there's definitely some sadness. Yeah. So basically what's happening is Southgate Media, which has been the home of Biters since Biters began, and it's the home of many, many, many other podcasts, including Real Housewives, which we do, including Capes and Lunatics, which our friends do, and we sometimes participate in the roundtables. And including so many others. I mean, we have multiple friends who have podcasts on Southgate Media Group. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the Southgates are not going to be hosting podcasts anymore after the 24th of this month. So what that means for the people who have podcasts through Southgate Media Group is that we are being given the rights to our shows, so we can continue our shows. But we have to kind of figure out for ourselves what that means in terms of hosting and getting them edited and posted and all that kind of stuff. And for me, really frankly, the big barrier is figuring out the tech of the hosting service. It sounds like it's going to be actually relatively smooth for us to just take over the feed that we've already got. But I need to make some time to talk to Rob, and I did not have time to do his AMA on it yesterday, so...
Yeah, so the baby birds are getting kicked out of their nest, and we have to fly on our own, but luckily we're in some very, very good company, so I think at least a few of the Southgate Media Group podcast people are going to kind of band together and figure this out for ourselves, for each other. Together?
You know, I think that there is definitely going to be some cooperation in terms of, you know, whether it's going to be like a little collective of podcasters, I'm not really sure, or whether it's just going to be like, okay, so I've got some information that's going to help you figure out how to manage your stuff, you know?
So if I can learn plumbing on YouTube, I can probably learn podcasting.
Yeah, so that's the big news, Biters. We are going to be hoping to continue on our own. I know we've been really spotty, and it's mostly been my fault. I'm hoping that we can figure it out and that I can get a little more consistent. So, yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. We've got a couple of weeks left with Southgate Media Group, and then we got to figure it out.
Yep. But we are definitely going to do season 11 of Walking Dead Prime. It's, of course, the last season of the show. So we're going to invest the time and probably some money to stick with it. So just bear with us.
Well, I wouldn't say definitely, because that's one of those things where you're making promises that I have to keep.
I'm definitely going to try.
Definitely
You're definitely
going to try. Wow, that's like something Eugene would say.
Actually, I was thinking Yumiko because it's a very legal.
Oh my God, that's so funny that you say that, because I was going to say, I've actually learned a little bit about how attorneys talk, and it's like, there's a 90% chance that that's going to happen today.
Yep.
There's never any 100% chance, and
Nope.
sometimes it's like less than 50% chance that's going to happen.
If anything that the last year or two has taught me is never say never, which, I mean, is a funny thing to say, but predict where you're going to be in a year, make plans and life will laugh at you.
Right.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes. I actually told my guy pretty recently, because you and I have talked privately, so we both, what a crazy August it's been for the two of us. And I said, I quoted Jim from Walking Dead season 1. That sound you're hearing, that's God laughing at you while you're making other plans. Mm-hmm. Which I think John Lennon actually popularized that saying, but Jim said it in season 1 of Walking Dead.
John Lennon, wow, I would not have guessed that.
I'm pretty sure he's the one who said it. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, so we are podcasting Acheron Part 2, or Acheron. We're not really sure. Marn's probably right. It's probably Acheron.
I prefer Acheron, though.
I do too, actually. And I remembered now why I have it stuck in my head as Acheron. I mean, I told you about that series of romance novels that I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. They always referred to the character as Ash.
Ah.
So.
Because it would be weird to refer to him as Ash.
That's funny. And then we have The Hunted, which I still have to watch. Have you watched that yet?
I've been a good girl, and I have not watched yet.
Ah, okay. So we are wickedly behind. But
I plan on watching tonight so that I can avoid doing any more plumbing to my house.
That's funny. I might watch it tonight. We'll see how tired I am. I was also telling Marn before we got on that I had my butt totally kicked by my personal trainer today. I am so tired.
Yeah, and so I took a 5-day weekend on this last weekend, and so I will be off tomorrow, which is Tuesday. And I decided to work really, really hard on Friday, do nothing Saturday and Sunday, and then try and remodel an entire bathroom today. It didn't quite work out. Stuff is still drying, so I will be back at it tomorrow.
You are such a badass.
Oh, it's all YouTube. Yeah. You can learn how to do anything on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I could do some knee surgery if I needed to. For YouTube.
I am not volunteering any knees.
Oh, well, I mean, we have seen nurses and veterinarians doing serious surgery on human beings. So,
on Walking Dead. Yeah.
Anything can happen.
What's really funny is, so you and I have been talking knees. We were talking knee surgery before we signed on as well. Yes, I know we're already off the rails. And one of my knees has been not happy for a while. And when I started working out with this personal trainer, after the first day, I was like, oh my God, I had completely forgotten how jacked up this knee was because I had been so inactive. And I actually ended up buying these really spiffy powerlifting sleeves, and my knees are so much better.
Nice.
They have helped my knees quite a bit. So I'm hoping that I can dodge the surgeon for a little bit longer.
I swear everybody I know has knee issues except for me. I have hip and ankle issues. The knees are great. Hip and ankle.
Yeah, I did the hip thing. I think really, if I wanted to admit it, there's potentially hip issues in the other hip, but the knee is bothering me more. So we're just going to ignore all of them. Yes, this is the Biters ladies discussing what it's like to get old.
Yeah, it's not for sissies.
Okay, let's go back to Acheron Part 2, or Acheron Part 2. What I'm gonna do the rating first this time because I've made you do the ratings first the last 2 times, and then that put you on the hook for your goods, bads, and uglies first. So
I thought so.
I gave it a 4.38 Weeping Eugenes or Sexy Stephanies with those big glasses out of 5.
We were pretty close, but if you guys remember back when we podcasted Acheron 1, I said that I cheated and I watched ahead, and I actually lowered my Acheron 1 rating so that I could give Acheron 2 a higher rating because, I mean, you know, there's not a lot of places to go. So I gave it a 4.6 Zombies on a Train.
Very good. And that's funny, Zombies on a Train. I mean, that's like...
Yep.
So like many
Train
things.
To Busan.
Yes,
yep.
And I was thinking Train to Busan. That's immediately what came to mind.
Yeah. Or Snakes on a Plane. Zombies on a Train.
So I have numbers for part 1 and part 2 because we're podcasting late. So Acheron part 1... 2.22 million same-day views. Acheron Part 2, 1.99 million same-day views. So I totally had that, and I know we don't have to beat the horse of, you know, people are watching things differently, but what I was thinking was, why did 0.3 million people, or actually 0.2 million people, drop off and, like, not watch? And then I was like, oh, they might have just not watched it the same day.
Yeah.
They might have been unimpressed enough with part 1 that they were like, I'll watch part 2, but I can wait.
So, interestingly enough, the IMDb rating for Acheron 1 is 8.8 with about 4,800 people rating. And part 2 is a 9.0 with 3,650 ratings right now. So people seem to like part 2 better than part 1. Well,
you know, and they were both rated pretty high, and I thought, I wonder if it's just because people are, number one, so happy that the Prime series is back, and number 2, kind of sad that it's ending, so they're rating it higher for nostalgia's sake, you know?
You know, I think so far this has, I mean, only 2 episodes in, this has been a great season. And I don't know if it's because we've struggled so much with the satellite shows, but I mean, I feel like a kid again. I feel like it's season 1 again. I am excited to watch. It's been tough for me not to watch because we're podcasting and Hunted has already aired, and because we have AMC Plus, we are able to watch Rendition. So I have 2 that I could possibly be watching, and it's killing me.
Same here, and I'll probably watch Hunted either tonight or tomorrow. I don't feel like it's season 1 all over again. I can't go that far, but I will definitely say that I thought this episode was much better than the premiere episode for this season.
I wouldn't say much better, but definitely awesome, and I like where we're headed. I mean, considering it's so funny. I was trying to think the other day. I was thinking about the CDC and who is still with us that was actually in the CDC in the first season. And the only person I can think of is Carol. Daryl, I don't think was actually in the CDC.
Daryl was actually in the CDC. Yep.
Okay.
So Daryl and Carol.
Okay. Daryl and Carol.
Who, as we know, have plot armor, so... I was reading something. I think I was reading something on Thursday when I was, like, trying to rush and get ready, and we decided not to podcast on Thursday. And it was something like, you know, blah, 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 Daryl leaves The Walking Dead, Daryl... And I'm like, who are you? Have you not heard about the spinoff series?
Yeah, no, clickbait.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so I wrote about the title and I was like, I'm still not entirely sure I get the whole River of Woe thing, but I did read the Eric Kane review of this episode and he talks a little bit about that. So when we're in Whisperer's Corner, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to say about the title or especially about River of Woe?
No, I mean, one of the characters mentioned it, I think, in part 1, but it would have made more sense if they would have explored the Negan had pointed out that there was a water line that the subways flood, and of course they went down into the subways because the rain was so heavy. And so I really, really expected a flood-like situation, which would have been extra pertinent because we have had such strong storms on the East Coast. And even a month ago, Europe had some storms that flooded their stations. So I was expecting that when we had Acheron 1 and Acheron 2 announced as the names, and then Negan pointed out the high water line. I expected an actual river, but no, that didn't happen.
Well, and so I'm going to go ahead and just say it now. I think you're right on, because that's basically what Eric Kane was talking about and we've got this flooded subway, and I was like, oh, so that's the literal River of Woe.
Yeah, and there were some issues, like the subway has flooded. Well, all of those things that Daryl would have seen probably would have washed away, or at least been way more discombobulated than they were if there had been recent-ish floods. I don't know. I think they missed a few things continuity-wise. So.
Yeah, and this is probably on me not being a good watcher, but I didn't get the whole, like, horribly flooded subway vibe.
Mm-mm.
I didn't get that.
Me either.
I got the we're on a subway train and there's zombies vibe. That's what I got.
Yeah, there was really no reason to point out that the subways had flooded and things like that, because, then we expected, zombies who were bloated and waterlogged and things like that. And
which there was one waterlogged zombie first episode, mm-hmm. And I realized, oh my god, I completely missed that, and that was a nod to the Well Walker in season 2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the one that came out of the plastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was kind of grody.
Yeah, but he was bloated and nasty and was totally like the Well Walker.
Yep. Definitely.
So I don't really have anything else about the title. I mean, that was pretty much like the realization after I read the Eric Kane article, and then still feeling like, okay, I don't really see the flooding and the river, and okay.
Yeah. I think it was really just the reference in episode 1 to the River of Woe.
And I don't even remember them making that reference. That's how, like, disinterested in episode 1 that I was. And that's shame on me, Oh. I think, we've talked about it off pod before. I think I'm just a little burnt out. And, I mean, obviously everyone knows I'm really distracted just with all the craziness that's been going on in my life over the last year plus. I hope to get less crazy. I'm not going to say less distracted, but less crazy.
I think it's still, I mean, you're in your new place, you've started your job, like, I think it's kind of getting there.
Yeah, things are still really a bit of a roller coaster, but, I'm getting there.
Getting there, yep.
All right. Nothing to add about writers and director, because our writers are the same that they were last week, Angela Kang and Jim Barnes. So I'm not going to go into talking about them. Director was the same director last week, Kevin Dowling, same thing. I'm not going to talk about him. If you want to know what we had to say, you are welcome to listen to, and we encourage you to listen to, season 11, episode 1 of Biters.
I can't imagine that you would have skipped straight to episode 2. But
Right.
okay.
People do crazy things.
Oh.
Ivermectin. All right. So who did we decide we were going to make our featured cast?
So of course, because he died this episode, Jackson Pace, aka Gage.
Okay. Here's the crazy thing, right? I didn't even realize that Gage had survived, and it was the Gage who had tormented Lydia, and I did not realize that at all.
Neither did I. And I don't know if it's because he was such kind of a minor character. We saw him a couple of times before that. We had this small group of young people in the community that, they touched on every now and then, but, nothing. And of course, Jackson Pace and pretty much all of the young people have, as young people do, they grow up so fast, and I wouldn't have recognized him without Angela King saying something.
Yeah, he looked different enough, I agree.
Yeah, which, he's almost 6 foot. He's 22, so he's pretty much done growing, but yeah, I don't remember that kind of young man. He was a boy, the Gage that we saw on the train was a young man, and I didn't put the 2 and 2 together either, so yeah. So, of course, because he died, he is our featured cast member. There is really, really not a lot out there about him as far as his personal life, like a love interest or anything like that. He was born in February 1999 in Boca Raton, Florida. He has been in quite a number of things, starting with Barney and Friends.
I know, I thought that was crazy.
Oh, 2006. Yeah. He was also in a Law and Order, which it's been a while since we've had a cast member who was in a Law and Order.
And he played Kid. Which, that would be a role that I would have, except now it would be middle-aged lady.
So that was a year after Barney and Friends, so he probably was a kid.
Yes.
He was like 7, 8, depending on when they filmed. He was in an episode of Everybody Hates Chris, and if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of I want to say a Wonder Years-like show that was done about Chris Rock. And he played little boy.
As opposed to kid.
And he was also in a CSI, a Criminal Minds, and a TV movie called Criminal Behavior. So, yeah, that's where you get your start in Hollywood, is the crime shows.
Playing a kid.
Playing a kid. He was also in R.L. Stine's The Haunting Hour in 2013, which...
you were like a big R.L. Stine reader, weren't you?
I am. When I was a baby murderino, that's kind of where I got my horror and true crime start. Of course, R.L. Stine isn't true crime, but, here I was, a preteen, something like that, reading, tween horror books, R.L. Stine, and that, of course, graduated into Stephen King and eventually true crime, Anne Rule. So R.L. Stine is very close to my heart, so I think I absolutely love that he was in one of the shows on TV. When I watched it, it was on Nickelodeon.
I'm going to tell you an aside about being a baby murderino. Well,
okay.
not so much a baby murderino. So, Israel Keyes, American Predator,
Uh-huh.
Creepy, 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 creepy.
If
For
you do
people,
not know about
right?
him and you are interested in serial killers, oh my goodness. This guy, he was probably worse than we think he was, and he was on his way to being really bad.
And for people who don't know, just a very brief thing, here we are going off the rails again, and I'm taking us off the rails every time. So he abducted a barista from a coffee stand here in Alaska, murdered her, was unspeakably awful to her before he murdered her,
Hmm.
chopped her up and threw her in a lake. He abducted her by literally leaping in through the open window of the coffee kiosk.
Yeah.
Shocking. And so for, I don't know, probably a year, maybe not that long after it happened, because this girl was closing the business down by herself at like 8 o'clock at night. So she was alone. Surveillance, there was a surveillance camera, and there was footage. They were not able to identify him from the footage. He was very clever. Anyway, for a while, the coffee kiosks would not let baristas work by themselves.
Hmm.
I have noticed now that I'm back in Anchorage again that that's not a thing anymore. And there's actually a place probably a mile up the road from me, maybe a mile and a half up the road from me, where the baristas wear lingerie.
Oh,
They call themselves the Bikini Babes. And one morning in like the early hours of the morning at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, I was stopping and trying to desperately find coffee, and it was the only place I could find that was open. And there was this absolutely lovely girl in virtually nothing.
I feel like we need to crowdsource for them to get some self-defense classes.
I was a little freaked out.
Yeah.
So, sorry, totally off the rails, totally off the topic of Jackson Pace.
Well,
Definitely
so-
on the topic of murderinos.
Murderinos, yes.
But yeah.
So Jackson Pace had a reoccurring role finally on the TV series Homeland, which I have always it's one of those that I really have always wanted to start, but I think when it came out, it was probably one of those where I was already like DVRing two things that were on at the same time,
Right.
and I never got into it.
Is that even a thing anymore, DVRing?
No.
Okay, I
Nope,
didn't think so.
Not at all. No.
Okay.
Everything is on demand now, pretty
Well,
much.
I was thinking about sports. The sports ball.
Yeah, I think you can just get it on demand after it's aired.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was in 36 episodes of Homeland. So I think that's where, if you know him, you probably know him from Homeland. But he was also in a TV series called Code Black. And if you are looking for a medical drama, I absolutely recommend Code Black.
Oh, I was like, why do I recognize that? I remember talking. Of course, we didn't do the television series, but we talked about
The documentary. Yes,
on Real
which
Housewives of Alaska.
Which the television show is based on the
Right.
documentary. It is an amazing documentary, and it is an awesome television show. So if you are looking for something to watch and you like medical dramas, Code Black. And he played Pete Irving in The Sun Rises in 2015. After that, he went on to be on a couple of episodes of Grace and Frankie and a television show called The Right Stuff.
Which was based on the novel, which spawned the big film, back in the 80s?
Did it?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
huge film.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were associated, but
Yeah.
yes, it is definitely based on a novel.
And I will tell people that I kind of fell off after the first couple of seasons of Grace and Frankie, but it's really funny. It's got Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda in it. Super funny.
Oh, that is,
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
So after that, he got his recurring role on The Walking Dead, and I have to tell you that he has some social media accounts. He's got an Instagram, Jackson Pace. He is blue checked, but the man posts on Instagram about as often as I do. So he's had his Instagram since 2017, and he has 51 posts. So don't expect a gold mine.
That's really funny.
He also has a Twitter account, Jackson Pace, also blue checked. But for me, at this point, more interestingly, he has a TikTok account. He is at Jax Pace, JAXPACE. He has, I think, like 6 or 7 videos right now. Mostly they're kind of just him being goofy and humorous and adorable. But his latest one is basically about his first and last couple of days on set this season, and it's quite humorous. I will send it to you, Diane, since I'm your personal TikTok curator.
I have 2 personal TikTok curators, thank goodness, because I just do not have enough time to watch all the TikToks.
So if you go to his Instagram or you go to his Twitter or you go to his TikTok, he has the video posted on all 3, so you can see it on any platform. But I highly recommend going and watching it because it is so funny. It talks about his first couple of days on set, and I will just leave it at that because, of course, we all know what happens to him in Acheron 2. He becomes a zombie. So, yeah, it's pretty funny, but
we're going to talk about that.
I absolutely love that he has a TikTok account. Good for him. His career is definitely not lacking. He's got High Holiday, which is status completed, and then he's got post-production The Punch of Respect, which is a short, and a TV movie called Vegas High in pre-production. So, yeah, he's got some things going on post Walking Dead. So I think he will be okay. Yeah, he is super adorable. Like,
yes, we're not going to hate on him just because he was a terrible person on The Walking Dead.
Hey, Negan was a terrible person, and we liked Negan, so
yeah, completely.
Yeah, no hating on Jackson Pace. He is a lovely young man.
That's right. And JDM is a lovely older man.
Oh, I'll send you a TikTok about that
too. I'm thinking 48 looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. On some better than others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So that was Jackson Pace. Rest in peace, Jackson. Sorry to see you go, Gage. I think you could have probably developed into a pretty good guy. You just shouldn't have betrayed Maggie.
You know, did he?
We'll get into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm not convinced that he did.
I don't totally blame, him and the other guy, I can't remember his name, for peacing out, being like, this is a suicide mission and we're just going to go.
We'll talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of things for Corrections Corner, which we have not done in a long time.
Because we're hardly ever wrong.
But I was wrong about 2 things last time, and you were right, and I'm going to totally fess up. Yumiko has a brother, not a sister.
Okay.
I was very insistent that Yumiko had a sister. So, sorry, Marnell.
I had watched ahead, and I was just going to be like, you know what? We don't need to argue.
And then Eugene does still have his funky rat tail.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way that they had it like pulled back in the first episode. I was like, does he just have regular hair now?
Mm-mm.
But it's quite obvious in this episode.
Yeah.
So, Anyway, those are my corrections.
Yeah, I don't know which I hate more, the Texas Top Hat or the rat tails. So
It's
weigh
kind
in
of
on our
yucky.
Facebook, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of yucky. um, I don't have much for Whisperer's Corner, and this is my fault because I did not look at the news before the news rolled out for episode 3. So right now, all of the news there, there's a couple of pieces still like high up in the news feeds about this episode 2, but most of it is about episode 3.
Right.
So I already talked about Eric Kane's review a little bit. He basically repeated the same thing that he said in his review of episode 1, which is, I really, really like this. I thought it would have been better if they had shown it as a long single episode instead of part 1, part 2. And then he said the thing that I thought was useful about the flooded subway being the river of woe. And I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything that was outstanding or revelatory in his review of episode 2.
No, I think the big news that came out around episode 2 when it aired was actually about The Walking Dead Our World, and that Pollyanna McIntosh...
You mean World
AKA,
Beyond?
No, well, I mean, when
You
Acheron,
said, no. You said Our World.
Did I?
Yeah,
I did.
and you meant The World Beyond.
God, they really should not have named the online game and the other show similarly but differently. Like, those of us with like attention deficit disorder and dyslexia, self-diagnosed, thank you. Like, I just can't keep those two straight. Anyway, so Pollyanna McIntosh, aka Jadis, will be making an appearance on season 2 of The Walking Dead World Beyond.
That was actually my next thing, and I was like, spoiler! So
yeah.
You should have said spoiler!
I think by now, if you haven't seen the news, you don't pay attention to the news and you rely on biters for your news, which
I was
going to
say, a lot of people don't look up Walking Dead news, so they hear it on podcasts. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm so irritated that World Beyond is starting to air in very short order. I believe I saw something about Fear coming back in very short order. Mm-hmm. I just got kind of irritated the more I started to look. So
yeah, the way that they have aired the seasons has been so lopsided that it's very strenuous for podcasters in general.
Yes.
Of The Walking Dead, if we are going to try and podcast all of them.
Yes, I agree. The only other thing that I had, and this was more clickbait than spoilery. So apparently Jeffrey Dean Morgan is still kind of talking up the idea of a Negan spinoff.
I wholeheartedly support that.
I wholeheartedly support that, except I'm not sure that I'm going to be up to podcasting that. And it's not because I don't love JDM. It's just we're 11 seasons in, and I'm kind of tired.
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll talk about it.
We will.
We'll talk about it once we figure out what on earth we are doing to actually become independent podcasters. So...
Man, the anxiety of that.
I don't think it's going to be terribly expensive. I think for me, the bigger anxiety is just trying to figure out how to deal with the feeds.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if we can just kind of slip in and take over the feeds that we've got on Libsyn, sorry guys, we're really talking shop right now, that'll be fairly easy, but if we can't just slip in and take over those feeds, I'm not quite sure. I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all right. We'll work on it.
All right.
All right.
Does that get us into our good, bads, and uglies?
I think it actually does. And I guess I have to go first, don't I? I did that to myself.
Take it away, Diane.
So my good is that Stephanie is lovely and she's real and I really hope that she's not like, ooh, this guy is kind of sweaty and weird.
Oh, see, and I went in the completely opposite direction where I'm like, okay, so we have a woman who came in who claims to be Stephanie.
Oh my God, you're so terrible. Really?
It could still be a catfish.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying.
That's terrible.
It is. Because I'm a terrible person. No, but like, I really do hope for Eugene, because she was adorable. The woman who they have claiming to be Stephanie. I will just say that. No, I have not watched ahead at all, I promise. So I don't know. Yeah, she was just adorable. Which one of you is Eugene?
Yeah. Yeah.
As if you couldn't tell.
Well, I mean, she could have assumed that Kari Payton was Eugene.
No. Oh, could you imagine Kari Payton talking about
Iron Maiden?
all of the things that Eugene and she talked about.
Yeah, no, I am stereotyping a little bit, but I really can't imagine Kari Payton or Ezekiel talking about Iron Maiden. No.
Yeah. Nope. So that was your good?
Yeah, that was my good,
Real?
which you totally ruined my good. God. It's like watching Love Actually with you.
Yeah. And just to prove to you guys that I am a terrible person, my good was Maggie's horrible story.
Oh my God, we are so going to talk about that because that's actually my ugly, and it's a good ugly.
Okay, so was that in the books?
No.
No, I don't,
No. I can tell. It would totally have stuck in my memory if it had been in the comic books. It was not in the comic books.
So that is some, Texas Chainsaw Boxing Helena type stuff. And if you don't know what Boxing Helena is, Google it. It's a movie, and it's really messed up.
It was Julian Sands, wasn't it?
Oof, I think so. But wow, it just kept getting worse and worse. Their arms and legs were cut off. Okay, that's horrendous. But then, not only were their tongues cut out, but their vocal cords were ripped. I mean, wow. This is what all of us women fear in the post-apocalyptic world.
Oh my God, this is what most of us women fear in the not post-apocalyptic world.
Right.
Believe me, the man and I have been having some conversation about Texas. Sorry, you guys getting political, and about my fears for very young women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is what women are afraid of. Sorry, guys. I know there are plenty of nice guys out there. I met one. So, there are nice guys. I'm telling you, there are also plenty of guys who would do exactly the kind of thing that Maggie described.
I was going to say, so I think it was Gloria Steinem who said, who asked men what they fear about women. And they said they fear humiliation. And they asked women what they fear about men. And women fear that men will murder them. So that's a pretty big difference, and when there are no rules and no laws and things like that, you could totally wind up with things like that. Total Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff. It made me think about the episode that was supposed to be like that for Fear the Walking Dead. It made me think of Slasher last season. It was full on horror movie type stuff. But Maggie she seemed to be very affected by this, but yet in
But
a
she said, she was like,
dissociative way.
I felt
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel anything when I tell you that you understand me, because that's what's out there. And seeing that, I lost something, and I don't think it's a bad thing. Wow. It was such a powerful moment because of the way that everybody sort of sat in silence, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, we didn't see it happening in Alexandria or Kingdom or Oceanside or Hillside or any like that's so far away. Like that stuff, yeah, sure it happens, but like nobody we know that it happened to. But now you're like, okay, we know somebody that almost happened to, and they had to deal with the aftermath of it. And there are people out there that are like that. That's not a one-off, like, oh, it sends chills down your spine. And yeah. It also reminded me of, oh, no, I can't think of it. The Denzel Washington movie. It's been portrayed in a number of movies where somebody has like an overturned cart, and they're like, "Help me! I need help."
Oh, I think you're thinking of
the book of
the Book of Eli.
The Book of Eli. Yes, thank you. Where, and I think Mad Max Fury Road did the same thing, where it's like, help me, and it's a trap. It's always a trap. Don't ever help anybody, ever. Overturned cart, woman in a cage. No, don't help them. It's a trap. Mad Max Fury Road, that's bait. Yeah, I absolutely, I'm a terrible person for loving that horrendous story, but it's what scares us now. The zombies don't scare us anymore. It's the people that scare us. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I was like, so if I were one of the people that had survived this long into the apocalypse, 1 or 2 zombies coming at me would not scare me. 1 or 2 people coming at me would terrify me. Right?
And more to your point, we're terrible people that those are the stories that fascinate us. But they are
real monsters.
But they are the stories that fascinate us again, and I'm getting really political here, because those are the stories that terrify us as women.
Yeah. So we had talked earlier about baby murderinos and Israel Keys, and I will tell you, one of the things that absolutely terrifies me about him is that he had traveled around the country, and whenever he would fly somewhere, he would rent a car and drive to other locations, so that if he did something, it couldn't be traced back to that plane ticket. So like if he went to Dallas, he wouldn't stay in Dallas. He would rent a car and drive to like El Paso. And so he could never really be connected with El Paso because his ticket was to Dallas. And he admitted, and they found a ton of them. He had hid caches all over the United States.
That were basically kill kits.
Kill kits. Yep. They were like 10-gallon Home Depot buckets buried 10 paces from the oak tree. And it was guns and knives and duct tape and rope and stun guns and just everything that you would need in a kill kit. And he buried these caches all over the United States for when he traveled somewhere, he'd be ready and he wouldn't have to purchase anything locally. Like, terrifying. There are people out there like this. It's just terrifying. So
I was gonna say we're getting a little dark, but this was a pretty dark episode.
This was a super dark episode.
Yeah. And not dark in terms of I can't see what's going on.
Dark is in subject matter. But so I am a terrible person. My good was horrendous.
Well, I am a terrible person. My ugly is equally horrendous because it's the same thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get there.
So what's your bad?
So my bad was the whole Gage thing. So I really felt like there was time to save him.
Me too.
And I feel like I don't feel like Maggie was taking a stand. I don't feel like Maggie was being, a solid leader. I don't feel like he betrayed her. I feel like he made a stupid mistake and left a door open.
He and the other guy like totally chickened out and took supplies with them. I felt like she was punishing him for that.
She made it sound like she was doing what she did because he left the door open and the zombies were flooding in, and she, good Lord, listen to my dog. Yes, I still have smalls. I felt like she I feel like it was, she made it seem like you screwed up, you left the door open, the zombies are flooding in, there's no time.
I felt that that was an excuse for you tried to run away, and this is what you get for being a coward.
Interesting.
And I will tell you that your bad was my ugly, and I will talk about it more in my ugly because it goes deeper than that for me.
But we both agree that there was time.
Oh, definitely. There was definitely time. Yeah. And plus, when you have especially slow zombies, like if you watch Train to Busan, those are fast zombies. It's much, much different. Slow zombies are much easier to deal with in a bottle. Well, any zombies are much easier to deal with in a bottleneck situation, which you had zombies that in a bottleneck situation, that door was only going to fit one or two at a time. And there were plenty of people with long pokey sticks or knives or arrows or guns. There was totally enough time to save Gage.
Okay. And yet you have more to say.
I definitely have more to say.
Okay. Very good. What was your bad?
My bad was partially on me because I am not bilingual and I suffer sometimes from white privilege and not being bilingual. And Princess said a lot more in Spanish to the guard than, can I use the bathroom?
Right.
And I really, really would like to know what Princess said to the guard. That whole conversation back and forth between them that ended in, do you have toilet paper? There was a lot more that was said and they did not put it on the screen. And I feel like I missed out. And I know that people that English is not their first language probably feel like they miss out on a lot. But I really wish The Walking Dead would have subtitled that with English subtitles. Because I feel like I missed something. And
maybe
I don't like
they
it.
wanted you to miss something.
I know, but then I feel that, people who are bilingual, or maybe, they didn't miss it. So if you're bilingual, if you speak Spanish, if you know what Princess said, I've looked online, I cannot find it. If you know what she said, it would be awesome if you could message us. But that was my bad, is, I feel like I miss, we watch the show so closely. I watch it 2 to 3 times sometimes to podcast. And I hate missing something. So that was my bad.
Well, we have already established what both of our uglies are. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Maggie's story. Mm-hmm. And as I said, for me, it was also it was a good ugly. I was gripped by her story. It was completely horrifying. I felt like it was a nod to one of my favorite X-Files episodes. I don't know if you remember it. I don't know if you were as much of an X-Files fan as I was. I should have looked it up because I can't remember the title of it.
It was a really long time ago.
But basically, there's like this kind of... Sorry, I don't know how to say it any more nicely. Really inbred family. And I want to say it's like 3 brothers.
Oh,
and they have their sister shoved under the bed.
Yep.
And they're having sex with their sister. And she's like on a skateboard or, you know, a furniture dolly or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically a shop creeper.
Yeah.
Like go under a car with. Yeah.
So I felt like it was very much a nod to that X-Files episode. I'm wondering if anybody else remembers that X-Files episode and thinks the same way.
I do remember that because I feel like the movie Wrong Turn completely like ripped that off, and so did The Hills Have Eyes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think The Hills Have Eyes was actually before that X-Files episode.
Okay, so maybe I didn't see the original one. I saw
a reboot.
Yeah, it was like 2004 or something like that. Yeah. So there have been a ton of ripoffs, and that X-Files might have been a ripoff of something else, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I remember that. Oh.
But the other thing that was really striking for me, not just the story, not just the, oh my God, this is my X-Files episode. It was the moment that she and Negan are kind of sharing as she's telling the story, because what you're really realizing is that they are both cold and dead inside, and they're both pretty horrible. And neither of them have escaped cleanly from this world. I mean, there's that moment where even the cinematography, they're kind of cutting back and forth between Maggie and Negan, and they just are so much the same. And
I was gonna say, I feel like their lives are more alike, and they're more parallel than they know.
Yes. And then Negan says to her, you know, she's kind of talking about how horrible this world is and how she has no emotion around this thing that she experienced. And Negan says to her a whole bunch of things. And one of the things that I wrote down was, nobody has it figured out.
Yeah. Not that they ever did.
Yeah. And oh, God, I just thought that was an amazing story. That was a great monologue. It's one of the best monologues I think I've seen in The Walking Dead. Again, probably because the material is so horrifying. And then the cut back and forth between Maggie and Negan, and just the highlighting how similar they are. It's actually one of my favorite moments in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, see? I'm telling you, I feel like a kid. I feel like it's season 1 all over again.
It's not season 1, but it was one of my favorite moments for sure.
So I definitely agree that they are making Maggie and Negan so alike. It's crazy. So the last episode of last season was Here's Negan, and it was, you know, all about Negan's backstory and Lucille, his wife, and things like that. And so, you know, we saw him lose his wife in kind of a terrible way. It wasn't quite as horrific as losing Glenn was.
Right.
But so they both lost the love of their lives in a terrible manner, and it was primarily due to the zombie outbreak. And both of them have this drop dead, like, last line that will never be crossed, and that is kids. Both of them are very, very protective of children, and of course Maggie because of baby Herschel, but of course she's always been very protective of Judith and things like that. But I mean, we've seen Negan time and time again stick his neck out for a kid, you know, and so both of them are so very alike, and they don't even know it. I have a feeling that they will by the end of this season, but I mean, you've heard my bold prediction on that one, how I think Negan's gonna go out.
You're going to have to say it for me again because it's been so long since we've talked about it.
The only way that Negan will redeem himself in Maggie's eyes is
Oh,
to save
yeah.
baby Herschel.
Yeah.
Yep. He will sacrifice himself to save Herschel. That's my bold prediction.
I think that's actually pretty legit.
Yeah.
Sorry, you guys. The studio is now right next to a really loud roadway.
I was going to say, do you
Yep.
have a landing strip next to you? So expanding on my ugly. So
Gage.
Maggie wouldn't let Gage in. So Negan, moments before this, had not rescued Maggie. He didn't drop her, but he didn't go the extra mile for her when he could have. He very well could have. And so he's like, I'm not sticking my neck out for somebody who is pretty much planning on killing me. Hates me, gonna kill me. I'm not sticking my neck out for her. I'm just gonna let the horde eat her. And so he lets her drop down. Well, she comes back and everyone's ticked off at Negan for letting Maggie go. Rightfully so, I think. But
Sure.
I get where Negan's coming from. But then Maggie does the exact same thing and nobody's got boo to say about it. She was not going to go the extra mile to save Gage.
I will say Alden was pretty overwrought about it, but nobody else was.
Yeah. But even in the end, he wasn't taking the crowbar and trying to rescue Gage. He just sat there and listened.
Well, but he tried to go and he was pulled back. Ezekiel,
Yeah.
or not Ezekiel, I'm sorry. I always do that. Gabe and somebody else pulled him away from trying to open the door. So he actually really was trying.
Yeah. So, but Maggie did the exact same thing that everyone was harping on Negan for 5 minutes ago.
I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah. I feel like somebody should have pointed that out. And Negan should have been like, oh, it was fine. It's fine for Maggie to let somebody go that totally could have been saved. But you all are harping on me about not risking my neck for the woman who wants to kill me. I'm just pointing things out here. So that was my ugly, is I was like, so everyone's against Negan on this. And again, the parallel between him and Maggie, she did the exact same thing. She could have saved Gage and she chose not to. And I think it was a punishment. I think for me, that's how I look at it, is it was a punishment for him running away, because there was plenty of time to save him.
I think that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. I thought so.
The idea of it being a punishment. Because I didn't see it from that perspective. So. Yeah. Interesting.
All right.
So it's funny that we both had very similar, this is the thing that I'm fascinated by in this episode.
Yeah. So I think Duncan was the other one that pulled Aiden back.
I think you're right.
Duncan was the big dude.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Negan keeps calling names. I think he called him Man Tits and something else.
He did.
Yeah, there was another nickname. I'm just like, okay, I need to go down and write down all of these nicknames, because I feel like they're gonna slip one or two into every episode.
That's funny.
All right, I think that takes us straight. I think Man Tits takes us into running over. Oh. So what do you got?
Oh, the opening with Maggie. And, like, her using the pistol, it just makes me mad. There's so much noise, and it's such a waste of ammo, and we're 11 seasons in, and she gets to make all that noise and waste all that ammo, and where is all that ammo coming from?
Okay, so I actually had a very lengthy back and forth with a gun friend of mine because of a different scene, but a similar situation. So when Daryl is able to come around the other side of the zombies and he starts taking shots at them on the train, I am one of those weirdos who, and it's because I'm around so many gun people all the time, who counts their shots. And I do that whole, that's unrealistic. You would have had to reload. So I texted my friend and I'm like, okay, I can't get a good shot of the gun, but it is really, really small. It's a handgun that Daryl had, and it was the one that the other guy handed to him. And I was like, so it's a super small handgun. Is there one that holds 19 rounds? Because that's what I counted. I rewound like 3 times, and I counted 19 rounds. And I'm like, okay, my Smith & Wesson M&P holds 12 without an extended magazine. And I'm like, 19 is a lot for that little gun. Nope. It's a, oh God, now I'm going to forget. It's a something 92. I will find it. But there is indeed a small handgun that will hold 19 rounds without an extended magazine. But this long into the apocalypse, really, are we finding, or do we have that much ammo for these weapons? I'm right there with you.
And again, the noise.
The noise. Yeah. Yep, I am right there with you. So speaking of Daryl, the mural that he sees.
I kind of felt like that was overthought.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Although it did make me think, I feel like I'm seeing a bunch of callbacks, and maybe I am wrong, but it made me think of when he and Beth were in the shop at the golf course.
Yeah.
It totally made me think of that because of jewelry and money and status and all of those things that were kind of manifested by all of those zombies or all those people who had offed themselves.
Yeah, maybe it's of course because of the Commonwealth coming in, and I feel like it's very pertinent to the now, and like the whole eat the rich kind of thing was going on.
Right.
Because there were zombies in that mural, but it was the people that were tearing the rich people apart. And Yumiko, and I can't remember if it was this episode or last episode, I think it was this episode, made the point to say that you raked one of my friends over the coals over a $2 bill, which leads me to believe that your currency is the American dollar because people so desperately want to hold on to the past that is a big symbol for people, which is why you so tightly control the money that's in circulation. And we kept seeing references to that in this episode. We saw the guy who had the suitcase full of money handcuffed to him and his arm was missing. And then we had that $100 bill that somebody had written to their parents or their dad.
Right.
And, you know, this $100 bill was so worthless at that point that it was just scrap paper. And, you know, we're going to find ourselves in a place, the Commonwealth, where those things have value again. And one, that's going to be weird. And two, I'd be hightailing it back to that station to get that suitcase full of money.
Although, wouldn't you also be a bit like, look, this is completely artificial. It really doesn't have any value because we've lived in this world for the last 10 years or whatever it is now, where this
100%.
where this has no value. So
Yeah.
don't try to tell me that it does.
This is a piece of paper. Like,
Yeah.
currency is food, ammunition, like supplies. Like, at this point, like, they're switching out batteries, and I'm like, no, not 10 years in. We don't have batteries. I'm sorry. Like, I left some batteries in a decorative thing for a year, and it's so corroded that
Right?
the decorative thing is now, like, I'm going to have to throw it away because it's so corroded. Like, no, batteries aren't a thing anymore, but currency is not a thing. Your currency is food and what little ammunition you have left. You know, yeah, just paper money. I totally get that there would be a huge amount of people that maybe were like the Alexandrians who were sheltered from a lot of the horrific things in the zombie apocalypse, and that, like, currency would be comforting to them, that it's like, okay, I know this thing, I can do this, I can deal with this, but, like, they would not survive outside the walls like the Alexandrians really couldn't. So yeah. I find all of the symbolism around currency and the wealthy and the Commonwealth and things like that they're building to something.
They definitely are. And I mean, if you read the books, the Commonwealth is very structured.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Did you notice that we got a new name for zombies?
no.
It was not said aloud, but the maps that people had drawn on the walls of the subway, when Daryl was looking at them, they called the zombies demons.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So completely out of left field, when they did run out of batteries, right before Maggie told her horrendous story, she lit a flare in that subway car. Have you ever lit a flare?
I have actually not personally lit a flare, but in the horseback riding clinics that I did that were despooking clinics, I was around flares.
So super smoky, super stinky. You would not want to be in a confined space with one, right?
Right? Yes.
Yeah, I just, even if that top part of the subway car was open, like, I can't imagine. I think I would have rather sat in the dark than choked on flare smoke. I was like, why are we lighting a flare? Like, I see all kinds of movies with those crackle glow sticks. Like, you crack them in half and shake them and they glow. Why don't we have those flares?
So I'm going to skip to the end or close to the end. Daryl and the grenade and the zombie. I just feel like there would be more. It would be more devastating in a train car, and there would be people with ruptured eardrums. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just feel like, okay, I get it. It was a gimmick. It was a fun gimmick, but.
Well, and again, I just have to wonder about the shelf stability of hand grenades. Like, I feel like at this point, if you're finding, hand grenades from 10 to 15 years ago, they are either duds or really, really unstable that you're not going to like want to walk around with one on your belt. So, yeah.
And the grenade was a callback to season 1 and the CDC.
Was it?
Yeah, that's how they got out of the CDC. They broke the glass with a grenade.
That's right. You're right.
And at the time, I mean, like when we rewatched it, we were like, really? The glass at the CDC would probably be a little stronger than that.
Yeah. Blast resistant.
Yeah.
So speaking of Daryl and odd things, when Dog was wrestling with that zombie, and Daryl is like, he's lining up his shot. He's trying to take the shot to get, basically not the zombie off Dog, but Dog off the zombie. I'm a pretty good shot, and
Oh, but come on, it's Daryl Dixon.
I would never shoot that closely to my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's Daryl Dixon.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm just teasing. I'm teasing you.
Yeah. Maggie gave Negan a gun.
Right, but wasn't there talk about that on Talking Dead, and it was basically like, Maggie just sees him as a tool to survival at that point?
Yeah, but I also think Negan giving the gun back, there was something between those two. There was something between them when there was something more on Negan's side when Maggie offered him the gun, like something sparked in him. And then when he handed the gun back to Maggie, I think it was one of those things where she had like completely forgotten she had given him a gun. And when he handed it back, she was like, oh, yeah, wow. So I think, I mean, obviously that has got to be building towards something for the season. Something's going to happen between these two, and my opinion on what it is, but
right.
I think between now and then we're going to see a lot of these trust building exercises.
Interesting. I like that. Trust building exercises. I'm going to skip us back a tiny bit. So I had talked about Yumiko taking Michonne's role, because Michonne was an attorney, and Michonne ended up being incorporated into the Commonwealth, and she found her daughter in the Commonwealth, and yes, it is all proceeding as planned. Except her brother is a thoracic surgeon and not her daughter.
Right. I think
that he's going to end up saving Ezekiel because he's a thoracic surgeon. They were very specific to say thoracic surgeon.
I
might be getting my hopes up, but
I did not catch that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I caught the thoracic surgeon, but I didn't catch the correlation between the goiter and okay. I like it. I mean, we are completely off book at this point, so sure, save Ezekiel.
I'm good with it.
Me too.
He has so outlived his character in the comic.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we end on the Reapers.
Right.
That you want to talk about terrifying. We talked a lot about Maggie's terrifying story, but to walk to a street that is lined with bodies hung by their feet. Yeah, that's a pretty, and then the intimidating sight, coming towards them. I mean, those guys were definitely, they're big and tough enough that they don't have to be strategic. Fully out in the open, not charging at our group, but also not a friendly mosey.
Did you notice that they were wearing masks that looked an awful lot like the masks that Sherry's group in Fear is wearing? Just saying.
I did not know. Huh. Interesting. I wonder, yeah, Smalls thinks it's interesting
He
too.
does. Smalls is very into the podcast tonight. I mean, he's a little bored every now and then.
Yeah, maybe that is some sort of prelude. I think I don't know. I haven't kept track of our time. I haven't done the whole math on how long it takes to grow an eggplant anymore, or how fast somebody can walk to Texas. But that kind of makes me wonder if that's the budding reapers.
Oh. I like it. I'm not sure that I think it's really a thing, but I like it.
I think it would be cool if it was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have much more than that.
I did think that Princess being excited about the toilet paper was kind of a pandemic joke.
And then, of course, her very, very relevant, we want to speak to the manager.
Yes, that was super funny, Karen.
Oh, I loved it.
I did really enjoy Josh McDermott's portrayal of Eugene as being so neurotic and tearful and fragile, and he was just kind of a wreck, and like his very stilted speech, like it seemed more stilted than it usually is.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that.
I mean, you kind of got to put yourself in his situation where he has been conversing with this woman and basically falling in love with her this entire time. And he has risked a lot to come see her, to come meet with her. And, you know, he's risking two friends' lives and now the life of Princess. And it hasn't really turned out how he pictured it. It's actually sort of turned out pretty terribly. And, you know, I love Josh McDermott on Talking Dead, where he talks about, you know, somebody had asked him about like how he was feeling in the moment or something, and of course, you know, he was just reunited with his friends who he thought had gone for reprocessing, I think is what they called it.
Yes.
And so he is terrified, he's alone, and all of a sudden he's reunited with his friends, and then boom, Stephanie. Like, that poor guy. I
can kind of relate.
Yeah.
I kind of understand.
It was a lot all at once.
Yes.
For him. Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's how I was saying. I totally get it. It's a lot.
Yep. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I really, really hope it all works out for him. Not only that, like, that's not still a catfish, but also that she's, like, as into him as she was on the radio.
Oh my God, I totally relate.
Oh man, who knew that ham radio was going to be the Tinder of the apocalypse?
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Oh, well, I have no more.
Let me just look one more time and make sure. I did really like when they were dealing with the onslaught of the walkers toward the end, when they were in the subway car, the way that they kind of lined up to take them out, and like as a group, like fatigued out lost their ammo, they shifted out of the way and the next group came in and fought the walkers. And I felt like that was a callback to the phalanx on the beach at Oceanside.
Ooh. Yeah, definitely. They had great form, like the group on the beach. Definitely. Yeah, I liked that too. The only thing that I would say is I'm getting a little annoyed that like we're not seeing Daryl or the other archers um basically police their brass. They're not taking the arrows that they're shooting. Like Daryl shot the guy in the sleeping bag and then just like left the arrow. And I'm like,
I think that was the mother of those little kids.
Oh, I thought it was a guy.
Oh, I thought it was a lady, but
Okay.
I also thought the thoracic surgeon was a sister. So here we are.
I'm just saying that like, yeah, I get it. Like technically arrows grow on trees, but those things don't grow on trees, you know.
Well, especially not the ones that go in the crossbow.
Exactly. It takes a lot of time and skill to make an arrow. So like police your brass.
So funny.
Oh, by the way, it was a Beretta 92 that Daryl had.
There you go.
I actually did get a good shot of it. I took a picture of the screen and I sent it to my gun friend. And like, literally, if I showed you my text and his text, it was less than a minute that he texted me back. Because I was like, well, this isn't a good shot, but here you go. And he's like, Beretta 92.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
This is why I keep you around, dude.
Okay, now I truly have nothing else.
Me either. So, yeah, we will try to get back on track. And
we keep saying that, but then
podcast
the universe
the
just
soon.
throws us all these crazy curves.
Right.
So,
who knows? I may go into the plumbing business. All right. I think that's everything this week.
I think
Don't
so
you?
too. Yeah.
Okay. So until next week, just remember, take it one
dead
day
at a time. Oh, much better than last week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Have a good week. Bye. Bye.